Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squad for boxing news and views from around the internet. Derek Chisora has been involved in some of the most entertaining and some of the most spiteful press conferences during his time in the heavyweight division. And he's added another chapter to that at a press conference for his October 26th fight with Joseph Parker, which is, of course, the chief support to the main event, which is Regis Prograis and Josh Taylor. That's the World Boxing Super Series 140-pound final. And that seemed to be some of Chisora's big bugbear at this press conference. So what I'll do is run through some clips and then my thoughts as we go. So Chisora, he started off at the press conference saying he had a couple of questions.
Who's the main event of this fight?
Who's the main event?
Yeah.
It's the gentleman sitting next to you.
Oh, mate, that's not going to work for me. I'm not going to sell out O2 for them guys to be the main event, so I'm not going to be like cheap support to these guys. We need to change that. I'm bringing water, so I'm not playing that. I'm not going to be cheap support, simple as. We're not playing on box office because these guys wouldn't sell box office by themselves, so that. So either you give me a main event or else pull me out of the show.
Okay, so first off, Chisora says he isn't going to sell out the O2 for Taylor and Prograis to be the main event. To some extent, he's got a point, but I'm sure the addition of Chisora and Parker, it's going to help shift some tickets, but it doesn't necessarily mean that everyone is coming for that one fight. And in my view, it's not even the best fight. I may only cover heavyweights on this channel, but the Taylor and Prograis fight is a much more significant fight than Chisora Parker, which is a decent level crossroads fight. But it's not the two top guys in the division, whereas the Taylor and Prograis fight, you could make an argument for that. And if the Chisora Parker fight, if it was so significant, and if it was going to sell out the O2 on its own, well, why wouldn't it headline its own card and be on its own pay-per-view event? I mean, the fact of the matter is, Chisora is way overestimating the level of the fight. If Dillian Whyte vs Oscar Rivas wasn't selling out the O2, and it was thousands of tickets short of doing so, then him and Joseph Parker will not sell out the O2 on their own. The reality is, they needed to cobble together these two fights at the top of the bill to justify the pay-per-view event. You take one of them out and it seriously weakens the card, considerably. So while Taylor and Prograis may not sell box office by themselves, neither would Chisora Parker. And if Matchroom and Sky had any confidence that it would do the numbers on its own, well, they would have pulled the trigger on it. But they didn't. They didn't. So Chisora, he continues, and money is a chief concern of his.
You want me to sell it out to my London crowd, my London fans, and then you want to put these little guys, nobody knows about them, on my show, and then trying to mug me off. That. I'm being serious.
Okay.
You know this is not right. My Muhammad Ali trophy, nobody gives a f about it no more. Nobody gives a f about little guys anymore. They all give a f about the heavyweight game, the big guys in the top 10, the big guys. Yeah? And boxing right now is thriving on the heavyweights. So for you to try and give me a chief support on my own bill, that's bollocks.
But we number one and number two.
Huh?
We number one and number two.
Who's number one? Bro, nobody cares about you, bro. Let's all be honest.
But we number one and number two.
Yo, don't get me started, bro.
We number one and number two.
Yo, I don't give a shit. Am I taking the main stage, yes or no? If I'm not, I want more money. Yeah, I want more money. I'm not selling out the O2 for these guys to come and take my fans. No, if that's the case, pull me out of it. Pull me out of it, and then it won't be a box office.
What's your thoughts?
I'm tired of the selling your shows and me not making money. So give me some of that money you're making, let me put it in my pocket.
Get on with it.
Yeah, we're gonna get on with it until you tell me, am I gonna be the main event? If I'm not, give me more money. And then we can get to business. I'm sorry for doing this right now, but I feel like you just me with no Vaseline.
Okay, so there's a few things that I want to touch on from those statements and circle back to one or two things as well. But we'll start with Chisora's comment that people only care about the big guys in the heavyweight division, the top 10. Which really is ironic because Derek Chisora, no matter what he thinks, is not a top 10 heavyweight. He's about top 20 there or thereabouts, but that's his lot. Definitely not top 10. I don't see anyone making cases for him as a top 10 heavyweight, and if they are, I would seriously question why they were doing that. I mean, sure, he gets the odd decent win, but he's come up short multiple times at world level, hence the 9 losses on his record. And sure, you can say Chisora doesn't duck anyone and he's fought, the cream of the crop, the best of the division. But in the same breath, he's also lost to virtually all of them. And Chisora, he keeps bleating about his fans and talking about his ability to sell out the O2. But what is Chisora's level of popularity? How many shows have been sold just on the strength of his own name? Well, really none. He has to have a good dance partner. He has to be the one in a good fight with someone else. And generally, it's on a card with others of, some repute as well. I mean, it's very rare as well that I hear someone talking about Chisora being their favourite fighter. He more falls into the category of, a lot of people like the guy, they support him, but his popularity definitely does have a ceiling. He's one of those guys that when people sort of name their top heavyweights, he might be in the top 5 or the top 10 of their favourite heavyweights, but generally not at the top. And I guess we have to ask the question, does Derek Chisora remember that he was chief support to Dave Allen in April? That was on a card at the O2. I guess maybe he's not complaining there because Dave Allen would have shifted a lot of those tickets. But maybe he thinks that he did as well and was taking some of the credit for it. Hence him wanting to A-side Regis Prograis and Josh Taylor. But you have to ask yourself, if he really wasn't happy with the money that he's due to get, why sign for the fight? Hold out for more. I mean, we've heard well ahead of this fight being confirmed that it wasn't going to be at the top of the bill. And while it wasn't confirmed and the contracts were still getting drafted up or whatever, I mean, that's the time to make your argument. But now we have Derek Chisora, who signed a contract which no doubt spells out the particulars of the fight, threatening to pull out if his demands are not met. And you can even see here, he made a post on social media in reference to some of the comments that he made at the press conference with him and some Vaseline. And he's making a gesture that he's about to put a couple of fingers in some Vaseline in a very private spot. Let's face it, if he does follow through on the threat that he's going to pull out, he's likely going to probably face legal action. But not only that, just think about this. The chances that he'd be allowed back on a Matchroom card, it would be remote. He really would be torpedoing his own career, and he'd likely find it hard to get the sort of payday that he's getting for the Parker fight elsewhere. So I guess the question is, are we to take this seriously, or was it all for show or partly for show to help boost the promotion? Shift a few tickets. It could be that it's a bit of both. Maybe he does feel a bit aggrieved, a bit peeved. But like I said, well, why sign up for the fight if that was the case? After all, he was the one that signed his end of the deal, and he was waiting on Joseph Parker to sign his end of the deal. But if it was about drawing interest, was it a bit misguided? Because, why go about trashing the main event, which in my eyes is a very good fight. That fight might be slightly more for hardcore boxing fans who follow the division really closely, but that's a very good fight. But why trash it in the manner that he did? He really went after it. He went after the World Boxing Super Series and said no one cares about it. And depending on how you interpret his statements, you can take some of his comments in a few different directions. But if he really is going all diva here, then in my view, he's overestimating his own star power massively. At the end of the day, if Chisora vs. Parker was so big in its own right, they'd have it as its own main event on its own pay-per-view event. The fact is, it's not big enough, and it's not on its own pay-per-view event. And there's a reason why. And if he can't see that, well, it's hard to, you can't really explain that to him. But before I wrap up, David Haye, you can see here smiling from ear to ear at the press conference, he revealed that Chisora is also no longer being trained by Dave Caldwell.
Been a few changes. Dave Caldwell will no longer be training Derek Chisora. There was a logistical issue. You know, Dave couldn't come down to London, and this time round, Chisora wasn't able to get up to Huddersfield. So we'll make an announcement who the guy in the corner will be in the coming weeks. But you know, if sparring's anything to go by, from today, you're in for an absolute treat. And Joseph Parker will never have had the heat that's going to be brought to him on the 26th of October.
David Haye's explanation for that split between Chisora and Caldwell, it really did sound flimsy at best. And I guess in the interim, I mean, Haye will make some sort of arrangements to keep Chisora training, motivated, all that sort of thing. But what sort of impact will it have? Caldwell has been in a few camps with Derek Chisora now. And you subtract Caldwell, what do we get? I mean, arguably one of his better performances, which was against Artur Spilka, that came under Caldwell's tutelage. And even if you do subscribe to the theory that you can't teach an old dog new tricks and that was all Chisora, you know, Caldwell just guiding him, I think that Caldwell was a very good calming influence, a good foil to Chisora's nature, which we've all just seen. You know, it can be a very volatile one. And part of me thinks that this whole thing at the presser, it was all for show. But then I think, well, if he meant every word of it and he seemingly, you know, acted like he did, and if that's the case, well, why not have some class? Why not sort it out behind closed doors instead of trashing the main event? So I'm still a little bit split on whether it was for show or whether he meant every word, but I'm sort of leaning towards the latter. How about you? Drop a comment, loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.